So I want to start by talking about the ways consumers are thinking differently about what health means and what that means for companies like yours. You know, health used to be simply fat, calories, and now we're moving into terms that are a little mushier, like natural, organic. How do you play in that space? And Tom, maybe you can start.
Sure, but I think you know, for most food companies right now, it's fresh, and certainly that's you know, what people are focused on is fewer preservatives and, you know, having a shelf life that's short, something they can take home and prepare that's, you know, tastes good, but also feels like it's a really healthy alternative. So I think fresh is certainly, you know, the big thing. And, you know, they don't want to give up convenience and make trade-offs, but I think that's probably what we're facing in the food business is fresh.
Denise, how about?
Yeah, to build on that, you know, I step back and say that we have gone through what I call some seismic shifts in the last few years, whether it is the transition of demographic shifts from baby boomers to millennials. Both have different ideas of what health and wellness means. The digital tsunami, which is changing the way people find out about food and what's in their food and information about nutrition. Also the way we connect with people about food and engage them. The consumers' preferences for food have really changed. As Tom talked about, fresh, natural, organic, functional, simple, transparent. You know, these are all words now that we use every day in the food business. And then finally, and this is pretty profound, it's a global economic realignment with a shrinking middle class in developed countries and a burgeoning middle class in emerging markets has created a bifurcation of value and premium. And so therefore, consumers are looking for better for you food that's also affordable. So that has had profound implications on the food business.
So let's talk about fresh. I mean, companies like yours were built on this notion of food that can last for a long time, that's you can put on the shelf and is safe.
Yeah.
How do you answer that challenge?
It's a tough one because, you know, we at Tyson Foods, we have the Ballpark brand hot dogs, and we just took out of the beef products nitrates and nitrites. And it's, you know, not a bad thing the companies are doing. They wanted to put preservatives in. They had, you know, the intent was to make it healthy for consumers so there wasn't, you know, foodborne illness, and there was a chance to have an affordable system. And so now, you know, as Denise said, with all the, you know, focus on transparency, consumers really are looking for, well, take that stuff out, but I want to have the same food quality. So it puts stress on, you know, certainly your supply chain, the cold chain, making sure that you're doing things in a really clean way to start. Food safety is, you know, in the forefront, but it's constant drumbeat of I want only the ingredients I can pronounce. I want to make sure it's very simple, and make sure that it's also not going to be something I have to sacrifice on in terms of taste.
Denise, you've made some big investments in fresh, but I think you found it hasn't always been easy. What are some of the challenges that you've run into?
We did. We made 4 acquisitions in the last 5 years, and mostly in the area of health and well-being, buying Bolthouse Farms in juices and salad dressings, Garden Fresh Gourmet with salsa and hummus, and then Plum Organic Baby Food, which is a shelf stable, but it's an organic product. Quite frankly, we've learned an awful lot about the differences in fresh supply chains versus organic farming. We're now one of the largest carrot farmers in the United States, and so we've had firsthand the experience of transitioning fields, which take about 3 years to get to a Campbell standard of organic. So I believe it's the responsibility, if you're going to get into the fresh business, to bring the standards of quality and safety that we've enjoyed in shelf-stable food. And companies like Tyson and Campbell's can do that. And so we are taking that approach. But fresh food is challenging. It's perishable. But you always have to do the right thing because the consumer has to trust you. And so having those high standards of quality and safety are really important.
Let's talk about science for a second. So when do you decide that you should follow the consumer? And when do you decide that what they're asking for doesn't necessarily line up with what you believe as a company? Maybe it's GMOs, maybe it's preservatives, and when do you decide to push back?
It's one of the most tricky things we deal with, certainly at Tyson Foods, because there is a constant, push on things that aren't really science-based. We want to focus on the outcomes. What is the right science to listen to? Because the consumer gets inundated with information that may or may not be the right thing to listen to. A good example for us is we use a lot of corn. Chickens eat corn. We have a lot of other products that use corn, and GMO feed corn is something that we do use. And you think about a planet that wouldn't have GMO corn as a base, we'd have almost twice the amount of arable acres of land that would be needed to support our food system. So that's one example, but it's trying to make sure that we're saying what are the right things to be focused on versus not. It's not easy, but it's a constant communication and leading, frankly, with the messages we want to deliver.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is transparency. And we made a decision as a company that we were going to be very transparent. In fact, we want to be the most transparent food company. And we literally declared that we were in favor of labeling GMOs. And as Tom indicated, 90% of the corn, soybean, and canola crop in the United States is GMO. Consumers have the right to know. They want to know, and so we're labeling it. And we also have what'sinmyfood.com, where people can go to our site and find out for any of our products what's in it. It's not perfect yet, but we're populating it with more and more information every day. But you can really get a good idea for what Campbell's has in our food and why we use it, and and what we're doing. But this listening to the consumer and to their concerns has led us to two things: a no-no list and a yes-yes list. So the no-no list is no artificial flavors or colors. No, we're getting rid of BPA in our liners. We'll be out of those in the can liners by the end of 2017. We're working on things like MSG and high fructose corn syrup. So we are making progress on making our food better. And then the yes-yes list is we now are up to 11 billion servings of vegetables a year for the consumer and 4 billion servings of whole grain. And we're going to keep going there in terms of providing better food.
So for both of you, what's the hardest ingredient to remove, or what's been the hardest product to adapt or change? Denise, for you?
I believe the hardest one, and I worked on it for many, many years, was reducing sodium. And I literally traveled the world, worked with all kinds of scientists, and finally found a lower sodium natural sea salt that we could work with to get to heart-healthy levels of sodium and have great taste. That's really a challenge. But I believe now we have, just for example, in our soup business, we have about 90 soups that meet that criteria and are doing pretty well.
I'd have to build. I think it absolutely is, sodium. And for a food company that is predominantly focused on protein and meat, sodium is a real challenge because we are either salting or curing a lot of our products for taste and for preservation. And to take that down over time is a challenge. We've done about 10 or 12% reduction in the last few years, which is good, but it's constantly, a focus of ours, and it is tough, as Denise said, because taste, does matter. I would say the other thing that probably, has been hard, but we've made a lot of progress on are antibiotics. So we've gone with in June, all of our retail Tyson brand will be the largest food producer, chicken producer, that'll be antibiotic-free by June. So for us, that is a big accomplishment. It's something that, it's not easy to do. I would say that has been very hard, but also, something that's not necessarily an ingredient, but in terms of raising animals, is something that we've been focused on taking out.
So if you look at what one person's no list might be different for someone else, and I think we're seeing this increasingly in food, personalized medicine, shifting over into personalized diets. And if you're a big food company that operates at scale, how can you do that? How can you make something for one person and something that's completely different for someone else? Denise?
Well, if you step back, we actually have been looking not only 3 years out, but also what's coming over the next 10 years. And so we've tried to build in strategic foresight to our strategic planning. And one of the strategic foresights that we've zeroed in on is called Better.me. And Better.me is all in the area of personalized nutrition. And I know that one of the other discussions earlier in the day was about personalized medicine. But personalized nutrition starts with the intersection of food, technology, and health. And the new technology that is coming, the advances in science, and the linkage to food is a really, it's an unbelievably exciting opportunity and an unbelievably exciting space. But just in its simplest terms, you know, Tom and I and Beth, we're all different, so why should we expect that we should be on the same diet or the same eating regime? So a couple years ago now, Neil Grimmer, who I believe is in the audience. Neil, if you're in, just stand up. Neil Grimmer and I worked on a concept which is now a startup company that Neil has founded and led, and Campbell's is front and center funding it. And it's all about personalized nutrition. And Neil and I actually put ourselves through all the tests to understand how this actually works. But it's where the science of you meets the nutrition. And I was a self-diagnosed high protein, low carbohydrate. That was the worst thing I could have been eating. What I should have been eating was low saturated fat and low sugar. And so I worked through this program understanding my biometric data and the linkage to the type of food I should be eating. And I've lost 22 pounds. And I wasn't trying to lose weight. I was trying to be healthier. And so I think this whole area is absolutely fascinating. We're in beta in San Francisco right now. And we're expecting that, that we're going to learn a lot. We believe that multiple business models will emerge from this. But we think that this is a very, very important space for the food business going forward.
So how do you capitalize on that?
Well, like I said, I'm expecting that new business models will be emerging. I would consider this right now, because it's beta, that we're testing and learning. It's getting us into a lot of different things, from how you develop personalized, customized food, how you coach the consumer through what's the right eating for them, and then all of the delivery that's involved. So we are experimenting with a lot of things. And I know that large companies don't necessarily always work with small companies to experiment and test and learn, but we're doing that, and we believe that we will crack the code on how to scale it up.
So Tom, you also have a similar approach at Tyson, where you invest in startups, and I want to talk about one of those in particular,
Sure.
which is a protein alternative company.
Yeah.
So that seems like that company wants to totally destroy your business. So why are you investing in them?
Can't beat them, join them. No,
Right.
That's, I would say it's not, they want to totally, destroy us.
Okay, a little
So
harsh,
the company is Beyond Meat, and protein, talking about personalized health, one of the things we believe is that protein is going to be, continue to be in demand. And we don't think of just animal protein. 96% of consumers, in the U.S. eat animal protein, but all kinds of protein. So whether it's, it could be vegetable-based, it could be any sort of emerging protein. So for us, it's we want to be mindful that we're, focused on the consumer and what they want. And so we have set up, similar to Campbell's and what Denise has done with their new ventures, is a team that focuses on either new technologies, new food types like Beyond Meat, or it could be sustainability technologies, things that get food waste out of the system. So that's been a big focus for us. The first investment has been Beyond Meat, but we're looking for other investments that will bring us up the curve in terms of sustainable food production at scale.
How big is this meat alternative business going to be in your view?
It's small today. I'd say consumers are looking for alternatives, but it is relatively small. Mm-hmm. Animal-based meat is still the most efficient way to deliver protein. Plant-based is growing though, and there's a lot of good work being done. And so that's, it's a focused space, but also not something that we're trying to propel as much as we are, being behind it for all the right reasons, which is satisfying consumers.
Yeah. I want to turn it over to questions in a second, but first I want to ask, you both have aggressive sustainability agendas. Should we think about that as tied to the issue of health, or is this sort of a separate thing that operates in a separate vertical within your companies?
I would say it's very much tied to health. You know, one of the things that Beth and I were talking about backstage was that there's a lot of focus on, you know, people want you to have one individual approach, whether it's for us at Tyson, animal welfare, or it could be the environment, or it could be your workplace. Our efforts are, let's not make the trade-offs. Let's try to make sure that we're taking a holistic view to sustainability. And as it relates to healthy food, certainly that's a key platform. So we don't want to do something in one part of our operation that has a negative impact on delivering, you know, safe and sustainable food. But so I think it is, you know, there's a lot of focus by NGOs and others to say, you got to focus on my issue. We say, no, we think big food can be actually good and plays a role, and, you know, have a holistic conversation versus a single issue.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, a team of people at Campbell's worked at my request on our company purpose. And purpose is something that you pull out of people's hearts, and then you articulate it and validate it with consumers. But we had a really good grip on what we were doing and how we were doing it. But we really needed to articulate, why are we doing this? What is the higher order reason for our work? Our company now is about 30% millennials. At our headquarters, it's 40%. And you know, in working with a multi-generation workforce, people need to be connected by a sense of purpose. And the reason why I'm saying that is because real food that matters for life's moments, that matters is our commitment to corporate social responsibility, whether it be ethical sourcing or sustainable agriculture or healthy communities. We do lots of work as a company in these areas. It means a lot to us, and it's in our DNA, and it has been for 148 years. But, you know, it is a part of who we are and what we do. It can't be an extracurricular activity, and you can't be authentic if it is. So that's how we bring our purpose to life.
Great. Let's see if there are any questions in the audience. We have one right over here.
Hi. My name's Meg. I work for Allergy Amulet. We're bringing to market a food allergen and ingredient detection device. So you've talked a lot today about food transparency, and knowing that the food allergy population is growing rapidly, we're looking at about 1 in 13 children, and I know your brand service a lot of families and children. How do you, in the transparency space, address food allergies specifically? And the bigger question of large food brands like yours, where do you see that shift going, and how you address the food allergy population and cater to it?
You know, I would say, just for starters, the idea of big food helping and being a part of the solution, much like Denise has talked about the purpose of Campbell's, the purpose of Tyson is to continue to raise those expectations for what we can do in the conversation to advance. As it relates to allergens or anything else that would be in the product that shouldn't be because there's going to be a health issue, that's where I think big food has an advantage, because there are incredible amounts of, you know, focus on making sure that the food is safe. And I believe that, you know, based on conferences we go to, people we are interacting with, there has been lots of investment to continue to make sure allergens are not out. To the extent that they are, they're labeled properly. But I'm pretty proud of our industry as it relates to stepping up to that. So certainly looking for new technologies. So to the extent that you're looking for, you got a great project that we can invest in, that's awesome. But I think that's the approach for us is, you know, how do we help with our size do the things that matter?
Yeah, I think back to the Pepperidge Farm is one of the companies that we own, and Pepperidge Farm was founded by Margaret Rudkin, who baked her first loaf of bread for her son who had an allergen. And I can tell you that we spend so much time, not only as a company but as an industry, in the area of R&D, trying to provide consumers with many more choices, acknowledging the fact that people have allergens, and working with universities in the areas of science to continue to provide food that people can eat. And that would just be the build that I would add.
I think we have time for one more quick one right over here.
What role do you think your companies have to play in educating the public about good foods, not only fresh and transparency, but the issues about animal-based versus protein, plant-based diets? How about connecting to the schools and teaching children how to eat better? We know that fast food is bad. but teach us about good foods that we need to incorporate in our diet.
That's a big question. We have a minute left, so you guys are going to have to be quick.
Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't really hear the question. Is it about plant-based food
Well,
in the
how-
schools? Is that it?
Educating the public about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have an initiative called Healthy Communities. I mean, our company's headquartered in Camden, New Jersey, which is one of the most underprivileged cities in the country. And we actually have a model in Camden that we've spread to other cities. But what we do is we have a public-private partnership with the Y, Cooper Hospital, Rutgers, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the mayor and the governor, and we have gotten together to provide nutrition education to children and parents, because that's the first thing cut in the budget. We could not get a grocery store to come into Camden because it would get robbed. So we brought fresh fruits and vegetables into the corner stores. So we have a corner store program to give the kids and the parents access to fresh food. And then we have cleaned up the streets so the kids have places to play. We have community gardens. So we're trying to have a whole comprehensive solution to this issue, and because 40% of the kids in Camden are obese, and getting that obesity way down is our goal. And I've actually talked about this at the Consumer Goods Forum, which I chair, and also to some of my peers in the industry, just to inspire this to catch hold to go into other cities.
Yeah. Just one quick one. The National Urban League has been a great partner for Tyson Foods, particularly in inner cities, to make sure that we have the right focus for students to understand what is good eating and what's not, and just again sort of talk about our industry. I think we do a lot of good things, and just to continue to advertise for that. We have a lot of work to do. We know when we do things poorly, and we have great organizations like the one that Denise chairs, as well as GMA, and organizations that are focused on making sure we have the right food system in place.
Great. Well, that's a great place to end. Thanks to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.